All right, so as you guys know, there are a large contingent of people that visit this channel who usually don't stay long because of criticisms they hear about Trump. They argue that Trump's words are what we should be hanging on instead of his actions. And if you're one of those people, this is definitely a show that you're going to want to hear, because we're going to expose Operation Warp Speed and the dangers of what are called DNA VCs. Now, this is a new generation of VCs. In fact, it's only been used in animals so far. And, if your animals are having problems, this is another show that you're going to want to watch as well, because there are some inherent dangers in DNA VCs. These are different than the standard VCs. Completely different mechanism of action on the DNA level. Now, what is warp speed? It is Trump's plan to fast-track VCs to Americans by Christmas of this year. We're going to look at a specific company with a multi-billion-dollar contract that was handed out under Operation Warp Speed. So you're probably asking yourself, Casey, Trump said he won't force a VC on anyone. And, that may be the case. That may be true. But again, those are just words. And what if Trump isn't reelected? What about the next president and the president after that? And what about all the people who will take the VC, the DNA VC, who buy the lie, who believe that a person like Trump would never push anything that could harm them? In other words, they take it just because Trump says to take it. What about their suffering? And what about the resulting chaos that could ensue if what I'm about to show you today happens? Now, many of you are going to think I'm exaggerating. That, something that has been approved by the FDA or Trump could never hurt anybody. Well, we're going to break down exactly what a DNA VC is and the dangers documented in a 2006 paper, and it's going to blow your mind. Now, I'll repeat. There are no FDA-approved DNA VCs on the market except for on animals. And as you're going to see, as we read into this, you're going to see that they tried to bring some to market during Zika and other outbreaks, but they never made it past clinical trials. And to put things in perspective, Warp Speed only offered 8 contracts, and the company we're going to look at today is one of those 8 contracts. So there's a 1 in 8 chance that this could be our VC, or several of these companies could reach their final stages of production, and you could have several options. This may be one of them. So don't get this twisted. This is something Trump's allowing and pushing through his Operation Warp Speed. All right. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to see what this product is, what it does, and we're going to document that it is in fact part of Trump's Warp Speed. Then we will dig further into what a DNA VC is, and we're going to take a look at this well-hidden paper that I don't think they want anybody to see, that exposed DNA VCs a long time ago. All right. Now on the left of your screen, you're looking in the border, and you can see that we are already talking about Warp Speed and what it does. It's trackability. And from a film that came out in the 1980s called Warp Speed. And as you see, on her neck is trace, like contact tracing. All right, make sure we're connected. We'll continue on with this. Thanks everybody for coming to the show. Started a little early again this morning. All right, let's keep going with this. And thanks to the subscriber that sent this to me. I wasn't sitting around going, oh, how can we play gotcha with Trump? Somebody sent this to me. So just so you know, this is from Barron's. Make this a little bit bigger. U.S. biotech firm Inovio reports encouraging VC results. This was June 30th, 2020. Let's see what's going on here. U.S. biotech firm Inovio. This is the company we're going to be focusing in on today. This is one of 8 companies awarded contracts. Reported preliminary but encouraging results Tuesday from tests of an experimental CV administered to 40 volunteers. It triggered an immune response at 94%. It's called the Inno 4800. That's the name of it. Designed to inject DNA into a person so as to set off a specific immune system response. It is injected under the skin with a needle, then activated with a device. That's the one you just saw that we opened the show with, that big white toothbrush looking thing, which it even says it looks like a toothbrush, which delivers an electrical impulse for a fraction of a second, allowing the DNA to penetrate the body cells and carry out its mission. Inovio, which is financed by the U.S. Defense Department, also said it has been included in President Trump's plan to produce hundreds of millions of doses by January as a part of Operation Warp Speed. Now, if you spell warp speed backwards, it almost says draw deeps. Weird, right? Now, there's your documentation. There's a couple other sources here. This says 23 projects have been launched, but there are 8 companies. Some companies are probably working on multiple projects. Here's Cision, another source here. Inovio received 71 million. Spell that backwards. That's 17, which is Q. I think it's actually more than that. This was dated back in June 23rd, 2020. The Department of Defense, Department of Defense, wow. To scale up the manufacture of this smart device, right? So, there it is there. It's called the Selectra smart device. Now, we're going to get into the specifics of this because I want you guys to see this for what it is. Here's another source here by Precision VCs, and they describe it the same way. Now, what is this thing? Let's get into that. Well, it's a genetically modified organism is what it is. So, this is DNA VC, and it's a technique for protecting against disease by injection with a genetically engineered plasma. Now, you'll remember when we talked about plasmids, they contain DNA encoding the DNA sequence encoding the antigen against which an immune response is sought. This is also a protein, and we remember what proteins are because it was mentioned all throughout the series called Utopia. The protein Janus. It was all about a GMO protein, and now we see this coming full circle into our reality from the fictional realm. Now, who are the other companies awarded this contract? Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, University of Oxford, Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, Merck, Vaxart, Inovio, and Novavax. Now, I'm not sure if these other companies are developing this technology as well, these DNA VCs, or if it's just standard DNA or VC technology. But make no mistake, these are genetically modified organisms. And so far, they're only used in animals. I'll look this up here so I could show you guys. Now, why am I concerned about this? Because if this has only been used in animals and they're trying to fast track this thing, that would be a little bit dangerous, right? Delivery. DNA VCs have been introduced into animal tissues by multiple methods. I want you to take a look at this image here. This looks like a cube. It's actually something else. It's like a dodecahedron. Wow, it looks like an antiprism almost, doesn't it? We've studied the antiprism, or some kind of dodecahedron, a pentagonal type of shape. But this is the carrier. It carries the DNA inside of this matrix, and then it uses this electronic device to pierce the sidewall of the cell and insert it into the cell, then changing. They're saying it does not change the DNA of the cell, but what I'm going to show you toward the end of the show is how that may not be the case. Okay, and it can't be the case if this thing is doing what they say that they fear that it does. So the Wikipedia article goes on. It says, because these proteins contain regions of amino acid sequences that are characteristic of bacteria or viruses, they're recognized as foreign, and when they are processed by the host cell and displayed on their surface, the immune system is alerted, which then triggers an immune response. This is the mechanism of action that I just told you of how this thing works. Okay. Now, what are the adverse effects? This is what we're going to get into. Limited to protein immunogens. Risk of affecting genes controlling cell growth. That would be cancer. Possibility of inducing antibody production against DNA. So it could literally kill your DNA. Possibility of tolerance to the antigen. Potential for atypical processing of bacterial and parasite proteins. Now, these articles that I just showed you say that the VC does not interfere with your own DNA. Yet, the very list of these adverse events and effects seem to be DNA related. So how can it not affect your DNA when it says right here, possibility of inducing antibody production against DNA? That's affecting your DNA right there. They also talk about a gene gun that uses compressed helium as an accelerant. This is one of the methods of delivery. We've talked all about helium, Helios, Dionysus, the sun god, Janus. They're all syncretized together. So, why wouldn't they put helium in it as an accelerant? Ode to the sun god, right? Now, I wanted to document in here about the animals, because it's only used in animals so far. Got to show you that. Let's put veterinary. No DNA VCs have been approved for human use in the U.S. Few experimental trials have evoked a response strong enough to protect against disease, and the technique's usefulness remains to be proven in humans. A veterinary DNA VC to protect horses from West Nile virus has been approved. Let's look at some of the attempts that they made at human DNA VCs. In 2016, a DNA VC for the Zika began testing at the National Institutes of Health. So this shows the track record for trying to push this technology through. Okay. Study was planned to involve up to 120 subjects. And then another company did tests of different DNA VCs against Zika in Miami. And there are also clinical trials for DNA VCs to prevent HIV. So, none have come to market yet, This may be it through Operation Warp Speed. Now let's get into this 2006 study, because this is chilling. Now, these adverse effects are well documented. As you can see, simple Google search is how I found this. Okay, they talk about the dangers and aspects of this. Remember, this is used on animals. So if your animal is having any of these issues, skin issues, fur issues, and you've had them VC'd with one of these, you should look up in Google what VCs your animals had and see if any of them are DNA VCs. Now here's the paper. DNA VCs Safety Aspect Assessment and Regulation. This is from February of 2006, and this is what they were saying back then. Here's the paper, so I think it's a little bit bigger. Documentation purposes. Okay. I'm going to go down to this section. Okay. Advantages and problems. Let's focus on the problems. No experience with potential long-term safety aspects. I don't think much has changed since 2006. Obviously, there's no long-term studies on DNA VCs, right? So this still stands. No experience with potential long-term safety aspects. Public perception and consumer acceptance. Yeah, you're drilling DNA into our cells. Yeah, I would think that the public perception would not be too great about this. Unexpected and undesirable consequences of the persistence expression of a foreign antigen. Risk of adverse immune effects by induction of immunological tolerance. Anti-DNA antibodies. Anaphylaxis, which is you can't breathe. Hyperimmunity. Tumor development. That would be cancer, which is exactly what I just told you earlier in the show. Risk of, this is a scary one, risk of integration of DNA sequences into host chromosomes and or germline transmission. Insertion of an active oncogene, that's cancer. Insertional activation of a host proto-oncogene. Insertional deactivation of a tumor suppressor gene. So, in other words, that's a word sandwich. Opening up gateways that could cause increased rates of cancer, is what that's saying. Risk of spread of genes to the environment. So now they're introducing a new type of gene into the environment that has never been there before. They don't know what this is going to do. This is like Pandora's box. Local reactogenicity and systemic toxicity. Biodistribution. The fate of the plasmid in vaccinated, I just said the word, animals is not known. They don't know what happens to these proteins, these plasmids, when they're in the animal. They don't know what happens to them in the environment. Where do they go? Do they die? So let's read a little bit of this. This is crazy. Quality and safety issues. In recent years, quality assurance and good manufacturing practices have become increasingly important in the pharmaceutical industry. The need to maintain control over all aspects of GMP cannot be overemphasized. Let's skip down. At the preclinical safety stage, the potential integration of the whole or fragmented plasmid sequences into the host genome after administration must be addressed. One of the theoretical consequences could be the insertional mutagenesis in inadequate positions of the genome, inducing genomic instability and disturbing some regulatory genes. So they have no idea what this stuff does. They don't have any long-term studies. such as the possible activation of proto-oncogenes. So what they've done is they've tested this on animals so far, okay? That's what they did. This is what they do. This is why they put chips in dogs. Because they're testing it on them first. It's like a giant test at the expense of your animal. And then they know that eventually they want to roll this out to people, but they don't tell all of us that. So, again, as I'm reading this, if your animal has had any of these types of VCs, the things that I'm describing to you may be something your animal is going through or has gone through. The possible activation of proto-oncogenes or inactivation of tumor suppressor genes, which could then give rise to malignant cell development. Wow, they actually came out and said it. This may occur by insertion of promoter enhancer sequences or by specific motif methylation responsible for cellular gene silencing. So far, chromosomal integration has not been reported, but further studies should still be implemented, since integration probability may differ depending on the tissue type. So you can't just test this stuff on the average white guy or something. It could have a different effect on African Americans or Asians. And one thing I noticed in a lot of these studies, being in the pharmaceutical industry for 15 years of my life, was that they didn't account for race much of the time. Race was not anything that they looked at. But some of these things can affect people vastly different based on your DNA, right? After all, it is a DNA VC. It says here, a method of delivery or adjuvant formulations with increased cellular uptake. The fate and biodistribution of plasmid DNA must be tested in a wide range of tissues and body fluids at different time intervals. So they're saying this is the benchmark. This is what should be done to make sure these are safe. We're fast tracking this. So do you really think that they're going to be doing all these studies? No, because they're trying to get this out by January. Perfect way to fast track something like this, isn't it? Isn't it all just so convenient? Some of the most controversial VC methods are now all of a sudden sneaking in under the radar, under warp speed. This is very bothersome to me. And it should be very bothersome to you. Why weren't you told about this? Why are you hearing it for the first time on a YouTube channel instead of the mainstream media about the dangers of this? You would think that the left would be all over this, right? This is why you should never stay in the right-left paradigm, because the left isn't looking out for you. If they truly didn't like Trump the way that they want us to believe that they don't like him, they would be all over this story. To discredit Trump, they'd say, he's pushing this untested thing. This is crazy. You know, it's only used on animals. They would be all over this. So now you know the truth. They don't care. It's not real. Their opposition to him is contrived with one purpose. Actually, two purposes. First purpose, divide you from the person standing next to you. Second purpose, advance the overall elite agenda, which is the left wants you to have all this stuff. They want this DNA VC. They want all of us to be VC'd. So they're not going to go against Trump on this. You see how they've got us all in smoke and mirrors. They've what is that word? They've snowed us. You're looking over there while they're doing something over here. This is why I keep telling you guys, step outside of the right-left paradigm. Stop choosing sides. The only side you should be choosing is God and the Most High, Jesus Christ. That's the side you should be on. Let's keep reading. Since the beginning of the use of the plasmid DNA as a VC, there have been concerns about whether repeated DNA VCs could generate anti-DNA responses, or the induction of systemic autoimmune disorders, like itchy skin, your hair falling out, that your pets have experienced. They lose their balance. Those are autoimmune disorders. Autoimmunity could not be demonstrated despite the fact that circulating anti-DNA antibodies have been identified after exposure to bacterial DNA or administration of naked plasmids. So they know they're there, but they haven't done the studies. Induction of anti-DNA antibodies to mammalian DNA seems to need the association of proteins or Freund adjuvant to the administered DNA. Moreover, the immune system becomes exposed to DNA on several occasions, such as the administration of conventional bacteria or viral VCs. And to date, no incidents related to anti-DNA antibodies have been reported. Consequently, on this basis, the likelihood that anti-DNA antibodies induce pathogenic effects following the administration of a highly purified DNA VC appear to be very low, but not non-existent, and they haven't done the studies. So they have no idea. Also, you know how like something's not right? You're not feeling well? You go to the doctor. How are they going to know that that wasn't caused by the VC? They never run down your symptoms and really try to get to the bottom of what's causing you not to feel well. The first thing they want to do is give you a pill. So I'm thinking 9 times out of 10, they don't even realize that you have some kind of autoimmune disorder. And let alone connect that to a VC that you may have had. You see where we're at with this. This is why this is all so very dangerous. Nobody should be forced to take something like this. Nobody should have their rights stripped away if they don't take something like this. Nobody should be prevented from being able to go into a grocery store or travel or go to work by refusing something like this. But yet, here's where we're all headed. Look at this next part. This was the reason that the FDA will not require specific preclinical studies to be performed to assess this issue. It is important to keep in mind that other undesired immunopathological reactions could theoretically occur as a consequence of long-term exposure or long-term expression of a foreign antigen. Foreign antigen is the VC. And the use of molecular adjuvants, co-stimulatory molecules such as cytokines, which may modulate a deviated reaction. Thus, an accurate assessment of such additional risk should be performed, identifying possible further causes of adverse reactions. Other safety considerations are specifically related to the environment, particularly the possible spread of genetic material with only a few copies of complete or fragmented plasmids. For food-producing animals, all new VC candidates should be thoroughly tested. So they're talking about the safety issue in terms of animals that we consume. They're even concerned about it with that. That's where this paper really is focusing on. Obviously, because there were no approved DNA VCs in 2006. They're talking about the animals. And guess what? They were concerned about it even then. Even the people that were consuming these animals that had received these DNA VCs, saying, what effect is that having on the environment? So in effect, we've probably already been exposed to this stuff. I mean, this is crazy. A comprehensive review of safety aspects related to the DNA VC of food-producing animals has been given by whoever this guy is. Regulatory issues, of course. See, they were having regulatory issues with veterinary DNA VCs because it's not, look at this, World Health Organization. To provide advice and guidance to manufacturers and VC developers, regulatory documents have been established and published by national and international administrative organizations, such as the European Medicines Evaluation Agency, the FDA, and the WHO. See Table 2. Let's go down to Table 2. So, they made guidelines for the animals, but all of a sudden we're on some kind of fast track. Unbelievable. Alright, here's the guidance related to quality, safety, and efficacy. We're not going to read this whole paper. I'm going to link this in the pinned comment, so you guys can finish the job. If you have a pet and they've had a VC, I would definitely recommend you read this paper over, as this relates directly to what your pet might be experiencing. So look at this. The WHO in 1998 established guidelines for assuring the quality of DNA VCs. Where are the guidelines for this DNA VC that they're working on right now? There are none, because this is being fast-tracked through warp speed. And the left doesn't have a problem with this because they want it too secretly. They're pretending like they oppose Trump on all this, but if they really wanted to, they would call this out. This is like low-hanging fruit, okay? But instead, they want to talk about race and all the things that don't matter. Safety aspect. Wow, this thing is loaded. We're going to have to break this up into two parts because this is a lot of information. I'll keep reading through this. If there's anything of note, I'll come back and show this to you. Now, here's where the plot thickens. Because all of this that we just discussed may be a non-issue. Just hours after I had already scheduled this live show, might have been days, this story pops up. Now, you have to wonder, right? Because billions of dollars were thrown at this thing. Okay? And under Trump's warp speed, contract was given out. And all of a sudden, we scheduled the show like last week. I knew I wanted to talk about this. Lo and behold, they may be losing the CV race. They may drop out because they haven't been able to exhibit the proper immune response that they were looking for. It says here, what is there? Underwhelming data on its CV vaccine, leading multiple bank analysts to downgrade the stock. Let's see here. And the other candidates were much closer to success. That doesn't mean that this thing won't ever come to market. But here they got 71 million for this contract. And the fact remains that this is a very experimental thing, only used on animals. This is definitely not the time where you want to push for this kind of technology when it hasn't even been tested for something that could go to billions of people. But I can't believe, my humility doesn't allow me to believe that they backed away from this just because of our live show that we had scheduled, okay? I'm not trying to say that. But in moments like this, I chalk it up to supernatural intervention. It's God trying to tell you something through synchronicity. He's trying to show you and that where we're headed. I can't imagine one person in the truth community who could still back a president who's on one hand saying this is all fake, and I'm going to let the governors decide if you have to wear a mask, and on the other hand, fast tracking a VC for the fake pandemic that he's saying. So he's doing two things at once. Now, we're going to end the show today with this trailer. Remember we talked about every few years, every 19 years to be exact, that there is a pattern in the heavens where the moon and the sun align on the exact same dates. We just went over the two eclipses, the two solar eclipses in 2 years, 2001 and 2020, 19 years apart. Talked about the significance of that and how also the lunar eclipses aligned on the exact dates between those 2 years. And then we went back to 1982, 19 years before 2001, and we found these same exact dates, lunar and solar eclipses repeating on the same dates. July 5th, 6th, June 21st, the summer solstice, and December 14th. And so I told you I was going to look back in these films in 1982. And we were going to see if there were any clues of repeating patterns, just like the eclipses. Repeating patterns, just like the eclipses. And lo and behold, I believe we found a very specific clue about the coming president. In a metaphor, the actor Jack Nicholson in a film, a 1982 film. Remember, this was 19 years before 19 years ago. Turn the volume up on here so you guys can hear this. This is called The Border. The Border.
I ain't in this for murder, you hear me? No way that I'm in this for murder.
There's some real big money on the table. Smart man, he's gonna play his cards right tight up against his chest.
You're killing drivers. Don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, because if I don't know what I'm talking about, where's the driver you took in there today? See this line? This line right here I don't cross. This line right here.
Within every man, there are two men.
There's times when I feel like there's a whole other person in there. Just isn't the Charlie Smith that I married.
One who does what he's told to. Game's a little different around here. There's some real big money on the table. One who does what he has to.
I don't care about you.
In every man, there are two men. Gemini. The Border.
Money. Well, your life is gonna be fine. Listen, you and I ever get involved in murder. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Within every man, there is a difference.
No, senor. You don't owe me anything.
Between what he sees is wrong.
But I just left him on the other side with Adam's apple all over his chest.
And what he knows is right.
Hold right there.
The split personality.
What do you want, boy? Look for that kid you took off the truck.
Within every man.
Child trafficking. It's all happening again.
There is a distance.
I want to feel good about something sometime.
Between how far he's come.
We take care of business, Charlie. That's all we do. We take care of business.
And how far he'll go.
See this line? This line right here I don't cross. This line right here.
Within every
The Wall. Kids in cages.
man, there
The Border.
is a border.
I need the riot gun.
Once he crosses it, there's no going back.
How you doing, Charlie? Charlie's never been better, Red.
Jack Nicholson. The border. It divided the land. It divided the man.
It divided the land. It divided the man. You can't make this up. Now, this released on January 31st of 1982. But I think we can all agree how relevant this is to right now. Let's go into the chat for a little bit. How long have we been on here? Let me answer a few questions. We'll be back on here tomorrow. And we're going to be talking, what's tomorrow? I can't remember. Anyway, we got shows scheduled the rest of the week. So hopefully you guys can show up. Same exact time every morning. If you're new to the channel, I want to be clear, this is not a left-leaning channel. We are against all forms of tyranny, right and left. Tomorrow's show I think is on Gizzard Lane and how she worked with the Clintons with her Terra Mar project. They co-signed her Terra Mar project, and it's right off of the Clinton website. I think that's tomorrow's show. So, and we got other stuff as well scheduled. So let's go into the chat. See K Smalls moderating. Thanks, Kay. And I see Dr. Savage moderating. And let this catch up. The Border. It's just crazy. I mean, here we are. 19 and 19. What's 19 and 19? How many years? 9 is it? 38? That's 38, right? Okay. I hope I don't get a copyright for that clip that I played. I hope not. That was kind of a last minute decision to play that. I was going to try to like put that together in a separate video, but I figured since we were all here, I guess we didn't get kicked off yet, so I think we're still good. I see all the people in the chat here. I'm trying to let it catch up so I can actually read it. I see Ali, Ashby, I see Redeemed by Yah, Ange, Tess, Lisa, Sheila, Eric, Able Body, Dr. Savage, Mark Man, Sheila, T. Kerr, Richard, I probably missed a few, Victoria Willing, Gabe, Nate, Jennifer, Giggles, Ja Webb, Redneck Rebel, Psalm 51, Marcy. Have you ever been into crystals and energy? No, Square Crusher. I think as a Christian truther, we all investigate that kind of thing, but then there are levels of that where people go and take it to the next level, which is more like the occult and or New Age. I never ever got into that. I investigated crystals and their energy because they are unique. There are actually crystals inside of your pineal gland, if you didn't know that. Microcrystals, and we're not talking about calcification. You're born with these microcrystals, and I believe that those are part of the antenna system that connects you to the Holy Spirit. But I mean, I just have never been a person who picks up a crystal and tries to like commune with some kind of outside force. God wouldn't make you do that. Now, there's some interesting aspects about precious stones. They were on the breastplate of the ancient Hebrew Israelites. The Uman and Thurman, which sounds like Uma Thurman, and she was actually named after these precious stones. And they used them in judgment, but all of that was directed by God. So they had a direct connection to God. God said, here is your, he had a specific covenant with these people. Jesus didn't walk around with precious stones. So you got to remember, there are specific law covenants and ways that the Most High handles each specific people. We're under Christ's covenant right now. So you believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and you're saved. It's pretty simple. God doesn't want you, you don't have to like find better ways to commune with God, okay? Jesus did all that for us. But in the past, they had these precious stones on the breastplate. There were actually 12 of them of the high priest. That's a really good question, actually. So, yeah, crystals are new age. Thanks, Rebecca. So, wouldn't ever grab a crystal and like try to like commune with God with it. That's all that's going to do is bring demons into your life. So, and mislead you. Good question, though. I just wanted to give a little background and why people might think they want to do that. All right, let's go in here. All right, I think we're going to end the show there, and we'll be back here bright and early tomorrow. Love each and every one of you. I'll link all of this in the pinned comment. I'm going to do it right now. Like within 10 minutes, all these links will be in there. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care and be safe.